Hey everyone, it's Katya. Thanks for joining me. Today's going to be a little bit of a different video. I've had a couple of people ask me how I made that turnabout that you see on the screen with the four different colors and the quadrants. And I do sell them. However, I figured since nobody's leaving home these days, I thought I would show you exactly how to make one of your own. So this is an example of the one that you see on the screen here of how I made one. And they're relatively simple, and you probably have all the tools that you have right in place to make one of your own. Let me show you how I made it. So I don't know why my camera wasn't recording, but all I did was take a piece of white cardstock and I drew a plus sign right down the middle to get my center points. And then I just drew 1 inch squares along the bottom and 1 inch squares along the top and the sides. So you can see they're just 1 inch grid squares. And we're going to do 4 quadrants. And I found some stamps in my stash that actually fit right into those little 1 inch squares. So that was kind of like a happy find, basically. But you don't have to have stamps that fit in those grid squares. The basic goal is to make sure that you have the numbering down. So you're going to put 1, 2, 3 across the top, then the next row will be 4, 5, 6, and then that bottom set will be 7, 8, 9. And you're going to just repeat that and rotate those numbers on each one of those. So I split this portion up just a little bit because I am basically just stamping each one of those numbers, the sequence of 1 through 9, into each one of those grids. And I'm simply just stamping them down and then I'm turning it and rotating it so that they're all going to be in each one of those in a completely different orientation. So here I am turning it, and then I'm going to ink up the stamp and then stamp down those next set of numbers. So each time that you stamp the numbers, you can see that they're going in a completely different direction. And so this is exactly what you want to do. Stamp it down, turn your paper so that you can stamp the numbers in a completely different orientation. And we're going to repeat this till we're all done. Okay, now that we're done stamping all those numbers, now we just sort of need to either highlight or circle each one of the numbers in each one of those quadrants, maybe just in a different color if it helps you. But I just took some paint and I'm going to follow the same system that I have on the left side by coloring each one of those numbers in a different color, just exactly as they are here on this one. So in that pink quadrant, the numbers are showing me 1, 5, and 7. And those are the numbers that I either need to circle, or in this case, I'm just using a stamp from the stamp set. Now I'm going to take that circular stamp and I'm going to choose 4 different colors of ink just to kind of make it easy. And I'm going to highlight each one of those numbers that are designated right there on the stamped one that's laminated and colored. So you don't need to color the quadrant. You can just basically identify the numbers that you need to highlight. So in this case, like you see in the pink, I am highlighting the number 1. And using that template on the left as a guide, I'm just going to follow the repeating pattern that I see on each one of those. So let me just talk it out loud as you watch me do this, because this is relatively simple. I'm just stamping twice because my ink isn't saturated enough. But I wanted to let you know that when you do this grid pattern, even though it's on a 6 by 6 piece of paper, you can actually make your grid squares like 3/4 inch. You just want to make sure that all of your squares in the grid are identical. And then you can use that to make smaller templates if you want. And another thing I wanted to mention too is when you put your stamps right in those little squares on each one of those numbers, they can kind of overlap. You just want to pay attention as to where they overlap because, say, for example, you've got something in the number 6 spot. As long as around those numbers where you see the 8, 9, and the 5, and the 2, and the 3, as long as they don't overlap that area, you're not going to have a problem with a repeating image that overlaps with each other. Gosh, I hope that made sense. If it didn't, please leave me a message in the comment section below and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But as you can see, the whole thing is completely laminated now. All the colors are in place. And now I'm just going to use this inexpensive stamp set, I can say that clearly, from Bow Bunny. And I'm just grabbing some small stamps that I know will fit into the little grid. And like I said, you can use larger stamps as long as you know that, for example, that one that I just placed there, As long as that stamp doesn't impede on square number 2, 4, and 5, you're going to be fine as long as the stamps are, like not exactly touching each other when they overlap. So this is also an experiment too. And I was going to say that if you decide to use this template, let's say you want to use that stamp pattern again, do all of your stamps as a template just once in black, and then you can position it just like that each time on your stamp platform and use it over and over again. So this particular template is great if you have a lot of backgrounds to make. So don't just make one card because it takes a little while to plan your stamping placement. But once you have that down and you like where they are placed, it's just a matter of picking up your stamps, rotating and turning, and it turns out so super cool. So I hope this is helpful. So I wanted to offer another tip. So your Turnabout template is laminated, which makes it really sticky and hard for your stamps to adhere to the stamp door platform. But if you took a piece of copy paper or even tracing paper or even a piece of parchment paper to put your stamps down on, you'll still be able to see where to place them using that numbering guide, but at least your stamps will stay on your stamp platform and not stuck to the template. So before I forget to mention, that is a 6x6 piece of white cardstock that I'm stamping on. And I've chosen to use 4 colors here, and I'm just rotating it each time. And what's great about this is if your stamps are positioned on there and you leave them in place, obviously, when you rotate, you will always know where you're supposed to stamp next because you don't want to overlap those stamps in a different color, just like I showed here. So each time I turned that, I was like, where am I supposed to stamp? And then obviously the green doesn't have a spot. So then I pushed it down, and that's exactly where I'm supposed to stamp the green one. Then I rotate it again, and that is where my fourth and final color needs to be. So that is the final stamping with this color, and I just pushed it down just a little bit more to make sure I had that ink saturated, and here is a close-up. Okay, and here again is the one that I made with Microsoft Office Publisher, the software program, but this is the one I just made here on screen with you, and it's pretty simple. So again, you can use 1-inch squares or you can actually use the smaller ones like 3/4 inch, but you just want to make sure that they're all identical. And then you can just laminate it and create your own pattern maker. Now, off camera, I created this pattern paper using this Fiskars stamp set called Scandinavian Garden by Leah Griffith, and I think it turned out great. I just used black ink and I used my Prismacolor pencils to color it all in. And I also filled in some of the empty white space with other stamps using the stamp positioner and positioning right between those white spaces, and added some colored dots with some Catherine Pooler inks. So I hope this inspires you to make your own pattern maker and pull out some of those small stamps that you've been neglecting and create a gorgeous piece of patterned paper. Try saying that fast 5 times. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you next time, and don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. I will catch you next time. Ciao for now.